All right, guys, it's 11 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll allow people to keep joining into the lobby, but we're going to go ahead and kick off everything. We are going to be recording the meeting today, so we will post that on the website after we are done for those of your colleagues that may not have been able to make it today. I'm Jen Wade. I'm the Grants Division Director over at OPB, and I have a couple of folks joining us from our team, and I'll let them go around the room and introduce themselves. Jonna, you're first on the screen if you want to go ahead and jump in.
Good morning, I'm Jonna West. I'm the Grants Manager at OPB.
Want to go?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good morning, I'm Jonna West. I'm the Grants Manager here at OPB.
I'm Max Levy. I'm going to be the grant specialist here at OPB.
I'm Trey Bennett. I am General Counsel for the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget.
Awesome. Everybody see my screen okay? Perfect.
Yes.
So today we are here obviously to go over the hotel relief program that we have. The funds for this are available through the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, under the state fiscal recovery funds, and it will provide direct aid to hotels who can demonstrate a negative economic impact of COVID-19. There is $150 million obligated for this grant program. The application period, as many of you probably already know, starts on May 15th, which is Monday, and we will run this on a rolling basis until funds are expended. So it's first come, first serve. Again, the program total is $150 million. For the demonstrated negative economic impact, hotels or bed and breakfast will have to demonstrate a 15% demonstrated revenue loss or greater. And I'll get to the supporting documentations that is going to show that as well. Hey guys, if you're just joining us, if you could mute, please, that would be great. Thanks. What are the details of this program? It is a grant program. However, you guys are not going to be noted as subrecipients. Instead, you will be designated as beneficiaries. Under Treasury, it states that if the recipient is providing funds to the individual or entity for the purpose of directly benefiting the individual or entity as a result of experiencing a public health impact or negative economic impact of the pandemic, the individual or entity is acting as a beneficiary. Because of this, beneficiaries are not going to be subject to subrecipient monitoring or the reporting requirements. The eligibility under this program outlined, there are a few key points for the eligibility. You have to be eligible to meet the criteria if you are a hotel or bed and breakfast with those two NAICS codes. You do have to be in good standing with the Secretary of State's office. You have to be located within the state of Georgia, subject to the accommodations tax. Your entity must have been established prior to April of 2019. You can demonstrate a negative economic impact of COVID-19 by providing your federal income tax showing 15% or greater reduction in revenue adjusted for COVID-19 costs over 2020 over 2019. And you don't owe any state taxes. All eligible applicants should be able to demonstrate the negative economic impact and essentially summaries and some narratives that we are going to ask you to provide for the application. One of those is going to be a summary of the changes of your EBITDA from 2019 to 2020 and a narrative on what contributed to the changes from those years. Also listing any COVID-19 relief funds received by your organization, whether it's state, local, or federal, and the exact amount received, and how these funds were used to address the COVID-19 impact on your entity. I'll go through some of the ones that we consider to be COVID relief funds. It's a non-exhaustive list, but I will cover that in a couple of slides. And then lastly, any information that exists on an existing operational gap after receiving those funds. So what we're really looking for here is a narrative on, for example, if your entity received PPP, but you had some other operational gap and increased cost, et cetera, or something that did not quite cover it with PPP, that is kind of what you get by bullet point C on here. awarded for operational costs associated with maintaining and running a property based on the demonstrated loss incurred by the hotel or bed and breakfast. Examples of operational costs include, but are not limited to, rent, insurance, your salaries and wages, utility costs, sales, accounting, marketing, etc. The unallowable uses for this program are going to be any property or other taxes, lobbying, debt service, replenishing financial reserves, or satisfying any obligation resulting from a judgment or settlement. The application again goes live on May 15th. And so when that opens up, you'll be able to open it, take a look at the application, but you do have to answer the questions in order to move forward with the application. So what we suggest is once the application opens, if you just want to kind of take a look to see what we're asking, to take a look at the questions, to kind of start preparing, make a checklist, etc., you can log in and then hit the preview button at the top. That will kind of take you through everything, or you can just download it. And when you download it, it downloads everything in its entirety. So you'll get the application and any associated tasks that we have in SurveyMonkey Apply for that application as well. A couple of things you're going to need for the application. You're going to need your 2019 and 2020 federal, your 2019 and 2020 sales and use tax returns. And earlier I'd mentioned, demonstrating any of the COVID-19 relief funds that you received, whether that's PPP, the EIDL, SBA Express Bridge loans, SBA debt relief, any grants, whether you got CRF, ARPA at the local level, if you were at the county level, and for example, you're in Fulton County, you got Fulton County ARPA for the same thing or for something similar in your hotel or bed and breakfast. Those are the kinds of things we're looking for in the application. And again, there's questions on the application and there's narrative. I'm going to walk you through what the application actually looks like. And you'll see where we've asked very specific questions. And in other instances, we've asked for more of like a summary and a narrative. And that's really going to be more for us to be able to justify the program to Treasury too, because we want to see the impact on you guys as it relates to COVID-19. There's going to be a vendor management form in the application section as well, to facilitate the ACH transfers for payments of the funds. And so we're going to collect that upfront with you guys because that is one of the pieces that takes the longest. And so we're going to pull those on a rolling basis as well to go ahead and get those in to expedite the vendor management process. You'll have upload sections for those supporting documentations to include if you have received, for example, PPP loans that were subsequently forgiven, you'll put in your supporting documentation there, and you'll see that as we kind of go over the application. And then there is a trade secret affidavit on there as well. And once we get to that in the application section, our general counsel will walk you through that and kind of let you know why that's there and how to fill that out and some tips and tricks on that too. Not tricks, but some tips to make sure that it's filled out correctly. So just to highlight some of the application tips, your authorized official needs to be the person who is obviously authorized to put this application in for the entity. If you have multiple owners, etc., this person needs to be in official capacity to submit this, but also to receive the funds. This is the person that will sign the grant agreement for the entity. We ask that you put in one application per entity location, and we understand that you might have the same EIN for your locations. Just for the administrative ease for you guys as well, for us reviewing it, try to put that in if you can for each location, because your award amount is going to be based on the location, so each actual hotel or bed and breakfast. You will also upload your sales and use tax returns for the individual location rather than them all together. Award timing is based on the volume of applications, so there are quite a few of you, and at this point, we know that we can have an extreme volume of applications on the front end. We have the staff to handle those, but it's really based on the nature of the hotels applying the volume of applications we receive. So as we kind of get those in, we'll update you guys on the application timing that we are looking at for those and the timeline of awards. One big thing I want to highlight, because it happens more than you would think, is applications. It sounds super easy. Applications must be marked as complete and submitted. And as you'll see when I kind of walk you through it, it is the number one reason that people have an issue submitting and not getting in. And because this is a first come, first serve basis, I just want to hit home on that, because if you don't hit the submit button and you mistakenly think that you're done after just hitting mark as complete, your application won't get submitted. And we are time stamping these. So as the funds run down, you know, it's time stamped in our application mechanism. And I just want to, again, just drive that home that please make sure they're marked as complete and submitted. They're both green buttons, but I'll walk you through what that looks like, and you'll kind of get a feel for that. Before I walk you guys through the application, Max is the program contact on this. So if you have any questions, we know that as we go through this, generally all of this is going to apply to about 90% of you. We've already had instances of some differences amongst the hotel groups and things like that. Those are questions that we are taking, so we can give you guys some feedback on for how to apply. So if you will contact Max with those questions, we will get back to you on those. The program website is here, opb.georgia.gov/hotel relief program. And the application link is here. Again, that opens Monday, so you won't see it until it opens, but that's also going to be linked on the program website. So if you click that, beginning Monday, you'll be able to see that. Stop sharing and walk you guys through the application.
Questions on this call?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to take any questions on this call?
Yeah, I mean, if we could just hold to the end, because some of them may be answered as we go through. So if you just want to hold off until the end, you feel free to put them in the chat as we go as well. And we'll start with the chat and then we'll take questions as well. But I want to get through the application because a lot of that may be answered as we get to the application.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody see my screen okay? Can I get some thumbs up if you guys can see my screen? Okay, yes. Perfect. Thank you. All right, so here is what the application looks like. And you'll see here on the left-hand side where you have your application, and there are, again, these other tasks that are associated with this. This is for OPB use only, so you don't have to worry about that. But you will have to complete all of these before you can actually hit them as submit the actual application. So each of these has to be fully green, marked as complete, and then you submit the application. And you see it here, there's a submit button here, and you have a review button. As I'm going to walk you through, you can see how it could be easy to miss. So again, I'm going to say that a million times on here because I don't want someone to accidentally not submit their application. So the first item we get to on the application is going to be obviously the hotel and bed and breakfast name. So you'll put that in the top. We are going to ask for your federal employer identification number. You're going to provide the total revenue loss adjusted for COVID-19 over 2020, reflected on your tax returns. Just under that, you're going to provide the amount of PPP or other COVID-19 relief loans your organization received during the pandemic that were subsequently forgiven. So this is only for any sort of COVID relief loans that were
Jen, your line is muted.
I think somebody hit mute all. All right, so going back up. This is where you'll put the supporting documentation to demonstrate the loan forgiveness amount. So any SBA forgiveness loan letters or whatever that loan forgiveness provider is, you'll upload that supporting documentation for that. You'll put your hotel location, that address in here, as well as the organization website underneath that. you have a place for the application contact person. So we know that SurveyMonkey Apply allows you all to start an application and then designate collaborators to work on this for you. So what we're interested here is we want to know if we have a question about the application, who we contact. So whomever fills this out, that's what we're looking for here. The organization authorized user or authorized representative here is going to be, again, the authorized person, authorized agent for your entity that has the authority to obviously submit the application, but also to sign the agreement at the end once you're awarded. You'll put in the date that the hotel or bed and breakfast was established. Under that, you'll put in supporting documentation for the date your hotel and bed and breakfast was established, articles of incorporation, etc. Below that, you'll provide a copy of your 2023 registration with the Office of Georgia Secretary of State. If you have ceased to operate, then you would upload documentation to support that closing. But then that goes into the eligibility of the operating cost as well. So that would be something that you want to reach out to Max about. Here's your place to put the NAICS code. And then you get into the narratives. And I think we've had a lot of questions on the narrative portion, so I wanted to go through this. So here, again, we're asking for you to provide a summary of changes in EBITDA from 2019 to 2020, and just a brief narrative on what contributed to those changes. Again, looking for that COVID-19 impact. Here's where you're going to choose the type of COVID relief that was received by the entity, again, local, state, or federal, and then putting in the amount that was also received. You can pick all that applies. So if you got PPP, PPP, and EIDL, you can put them all, in here. And then just under this, how the funds were used to address the impact of COVID-19 on the organization. If you didn't get any COVID relief funds, you'll just type NA in this box. The box underneath that is just information on any existing operational gaps after receiving that funding. And again, if you didn't receive funding or if there were no operational gaps after that, you can just type NA. Here's your upload section for those federal and state tax returns. Below that is 2019 and 2020 Georgia sales and use tax returns. A question on if your federal returns includes multiple locations. Many of you may operate hotels within the state of Georgia, as well as Alabama or North Carolina, et cetera. And so that's what we're looking for there. And then here, we're looking for you to upload your Georgia Department of Revenue clearance letter. And the website for that is linked here. You can click that. Many of you may have this on file, but if you need to request it, you can go to DOR's website and request that. Just underneath this is where we get into the trade secret affidavit. So I'm going to let our General Counsel, Trey Bennett, go over that.
Hi, everyone. Like Jen said, my name is Trey Bennett. I am General Counsel for the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. Wanted to briefly cover our trade secret affidavit. For those of you who are not overly familiar with working with state agencies, we are subject to Georgia law that requires all documentation that comes or goes through our agency, our texts, our emails, our Teams chats. They are all subject to open records requests by anyone. We understand that the information that we're going to be requiring you to submit in order to be eligible for this grant award is highly confidential. It's pretty sensitive. It may contain social security numbers and all other trade secret affidavits. We will redact, if anything is requested of us, some types of information, but your financial information that could qualify as a trade secret, we don't redact that. The law requires you to submit an affidavit along with your application and documentation, identifying to us what information you need protected in the event that anyone or a competitor requests your application. So we have provided a template on the page where you will be submitting your application. I think Jen's sharing that right now. You'll need to download it, fill it out, sign it with a notary, and then upload a copy of it along with your application to us. And it can't just say my entire application is a trade secret. It needs to identify specifically the parts of your application that are sensitive business data that you don't want your competitors to be able to see. So it's on you. We're providing the affidavit, but it is on you to provide that to us along with your documentation so that we can legally protect your sensitive information from open records requests from the general public and or competitors.
Thank you, Trey. One thing I did want to point out is because we are collecting the tax documentation, all of that, we do ask that you please redact social security numbers from anything that you put in the system. So you can blank those out when you upload them in the system. And then anything else, like Trey said, just make sure that you're very careful and diligent about putting which sections specifically that you want to pull out of for the trade secret affidavit. All right, so at the bottom, you can see here that mark is complete. If you have any errors, it's going to flag you in red and you'll scroll back through. Usually it's some sort of formatting. So that's what it flagged me for. So I'm going to go back and hit mark is complete. And you'll see this circle here, check mark, turn green. The next thing I'll have to do is go through the vendor management form process. You'll go in, you'll attach your file. This will also turn green. Then you have an attestation that states all facts, within the application are, to your knowledge, truthful and accurate, certifying for all of your the numbers that you put in, etc. And then this has to be signed by the organization's authorized representative. So the authorized official, again, that we discussed earlier in the application. And then once this turns green, you'll have all three of these green after you mark this as complete at the bottom. Then you will have to hit the submit button. Once you do that, you will receive an email saying, thank you for your application. Your application's been received. We are now reviewing this application. If you don't get that, please reach out to Max. He can go back in, verify for you that you have submitted it. Or if you just want that verification just for peace of mind, but you should get that email noting that you have successfully submitted that application. So that is the application. And again, that will open Monday. And you can download the application, take a look at it, have it on file again for your checklist and all that. I'm going to go ahead and pull the chat because I see a couple. We are going to be, this recording will be posted on the website. We'll also include the slides as well. So you'll have those. Chat. One thing, while I'm pulling the chat up too, one thing I wanted to note is we are going to provide a template for you guys for the revenue, for the sales and use tax. You'll have a sort of lead sheet for that. We're going to upload that, so it'll be live with the application for you to use so that you can put each month, most of you file month to month or monthly. So we'll have that in there for you to be able to use. Yeah, the recording will be online. We'll try to get that up on the website today. Most of these will be answered in our FAQs. We're also going to post some FAQs for you that cover this. Does COVID-19 relief include ERC? Yes. So a lot of these questions, we're getting a lot about property owners not filing federal tax returns, the type of entity and things like that. If you would email those questions to Max, so we can, a lot of you are going to have very different circumstances that we could probably take an hour or two to kind of go over on these. Let's set up a separate call to understand the nature of your question, get through and work out how you guys should best apply for these. So if you'll email Max on those. Are funds allowed to support expenses previously incurred that are eligible expenses? So this should be general operating expenses. So as long as you have not received funds to cover the operating costs it would likely be an eligible cost, as long as you didn't receive PPP to cover those salary, wages, or anything else. Ownership change may impact your eligibility. Again, reach out to Max so he can get more information from you on that. This is a great question. And it says it's a SAM number required. For this, you're a beneficiary, so Treasury does not. SAM numbers take a really, really long time to get. The UEI folks are backed up. I mean, I think the last time it was like 9 weeks, if not more, for some of our subrecipients. Because you guys are going to be a beneficiary now, we will use your EIN number. So you will use your federal tax number. So you won't need the EIN, the UEI, which is the SAM number. I believe the portal opened at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., but I'll have to confirm that. A paper application is not available, but again, as soon as it opens, you can go ahead and download the application so you have that on file. One person had mentioned a payment plan for sales and use tax. Max can walk through that with you too, but as long as you're in good standing, you can download that letter in good standing with revenue. You should be okay. Lots of things we went over already on the application. Yeah, so a lot of these are more questions that we're going to have to get some more information from you guys. So if you'll email these to Max, we can hop on a separate call with you guys to kind of get more information and give you some recommendations on how we think you should proceed with this. I'm going to open up the lines real quick. Is there anything that we haven't covered in the application or that is not a very entity specific question that y'all want to dive into?
Can we provide 1-800 customer service number for these other questionnaires?
Yeah, if you guys email Max, that's going to be the best way because we can.
Can you share the Max email, please?
Yep, it was on the slide, but I also put it in the chat too for you guys to have. Because we can hop on a separate call. It may just be,
great.
It may be one that's very simple, but again, we know this is a very nuanced program because of the way that you guys are structured. And so it's not going to be something where one to everybody in this instance. So
great, thanks.
Would you be able to post just a list of all of the forms, all the various documents that are going to actually be needed in the application so we can get those pulled together?
Sure.
Thank you.
Are we able to download like a PDF of this application in advance just to make sure we have all these questions and can be prepared?
It will not open until Monday, so you won't have that. But what we can try to do is get something up there when we post. Like, you'll have this, right? So you'll have the recording of the application. So you'll
okay.
Program as a subject.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So question, if you do have two properties that one sold during the COVID and one, it happened pretty much in the middle of it, is the seller, are they also able to apply?
I think we lost you.
Hi, Jen and Max. I have a question.
Yeah.
I think several hoteliers may resonate with this, but there are several hotels that actually saw revenue increase in 2020 over 2019, maybe because of leisure travel or economy brands that saw it. So does that automatically disqualify them? And another thing is that a lot of hotels were under renovation in 2019, which will automatically yield a lower revenue. So has GHLA taken into account that, yes, there may be may not be a revenue decrease of 15%. It may be an increase, but that could have impacted EBITDA because of a renovation issue or anything like this. I'm trying to think from a broader financial perspective. And this is the same issue that happened with PPP and EDOL. They had to change the rule in between because of this.
Yes, that's a really good question. So OPB is looking at the revenue decrease of 15% or more. The EBITDA questions that we have, That's really our statement of essentially need, I guess, for lack of a better term. So that's going to be our description of the nature of the impact to the hotels in a narrative form, if that makes sense. Does that help?
It does, but are you automatically disqualifying them for having an increase in revenue?
If there is no revenue loss to show from 2020 over 19, then they would not be eligible.
Okay, and then the next question is, because the tax returns, I know you mentioned, blacking out details. Is it possible to send P&Ls instead of tax returns?
We have to have the tax returns.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I have a question on PPP loan information in general, because you're asking for how much we received, how much was we were relieved or forgiven. If we've received PPP loans that covered the bulk of all of our loss, will that automatically disqualify us for this?
It will not disqualify you, but it will be pulled out of the award amount. If you were made whole for any of that loss, then that will be pulled out of your amount.
Okay, thank you.
How the amount will determine for the loss percentage. So say an example, if my company lost 15%, so how much the amount of the grant I will receive?
5% on the revenue loss.
So if I lost 10 grand overall in annual base, so 5% of 10 grand?
Yes, unless you received PPP or any other loans that were subsequently relieved for you.
But those PPP and EIDL, we also utilize for the other expenses such as payroll, which is 100% gets subtracted toward that. Also, those funding, we also added toward the income in order to report appropriate expenses.
Only if your PPP if your loans are forgiven, that's the only thing that's being pulled out of the calculation.
Okay, so yes, it has been forgiven, but EIDL, which is some people get 30,000, some people get 40,000, some people get a full 150. Some people has an ability to extend further when they change that EIDL program, and they may receive like almost $1 million or $2 million. So I don't.
We're just not able to double over expenses. We're just not able to have two programs covering.
So if I receive 150 in EIDL, should I qualify for it? Should I waste my time to fill out the application?
We'd have to review the application to see everything in its entirety.
All right. So, basically it is yes or no questions. If you get the PPP, which is yes, you are telling me if it's forgiven, yes, you may still get qualified. But if you didn't get forgiven, then you may not, or vice versa.
If your loss, if your forgiven loan is not, if your loss is greater than your forgiven loan, you still may qualify. But if you lost 10 grand and you received 10 grand, that's you don't qualify. But it just depends on what type of COVID relief you have, what the loss looks like, and that's just going to be based on the application. So if you already know that you've received the same amount in COVID relief that was forgiven as your loss, then that would be something that would not be eligible.
Gotcha.
Does that help?
Question in regards to PPP1 and PPP2, and then ERTC, both years. When we're backing out these numbers, are we providing both years, both loans? Because the ERTC, there's a 2021 value and then there's a 2020 value. So there's different calculations, different amounts. If we're trying to back out just the losses for 2020, but then adding in the loans that were, sort of calculated for future year losses, how does that work?
So we're taking your revenues, the loss 2020 over 19, and any of the COVID relief funds that you've received in the same period.
Okay. So just the funds received in 2020, because we did not get our ERTC funds until this year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now EIDL is on a loan. Now, if you consider that as a part of the grant or something, only grant on the EIDL from the Fed side, that was just a 10K for each EIN number or each entity of the United States. Now, the concern and the question is, if I receive a loan on EIDL, such as 150K, over the next 30 years, but obvious, it's in a borrowed money loan program. It's not a restricted funding. We have used that funding to keep the employees. We have used that funding to maintain the property, to do the renovations and all other expenses. But obvious, that's also increase the people's expenses, simultaneously increase their revenues because they're doing great by improving their properties, utilizing that EIDL fund. But how you guys determining those two items toward the borrowing capacity or the grant valuations coming from you guys versus what we borrowed from the EIDL?
If you received a loan that was forgiven, you'll have to put that in there in that box, and that will be subtracted from the award amount.
That hasn't forgiven yet. It is loan.
Then if you
grant.
don't have any, that is a loan that you will put in the second part of it. We're only looking for in that first part that were subsequently forgiven. If it has not been forgiven, it is still a loan. And in the bottom, when we just ask you about any COVID relief that you have, that's where you'll put that piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that not gonna be get considered, or that not gonna put us in a negative of the
No,
number
no.
or
Not at all.
disqualifying category.
Not at all. No, it's really, again, we're just looking to see what COVID relief that you got. Again, the only thing backed out of the award amount, the potential award amount, would be a loan that subsequently got forgiven.
All right, sounds great.
If I
Two
took
questions.
if I took my
Two
hotel
questions.
over in March 2019, do I qualify?
Say that again.
If I took my hotel over and I bought it in March 2019, do I qualify?
You would have been existing, our eligibility is, I believe, April of 2019. You'll have to go back to that eligibility sheet, but it's April of 2019. So as long as you meet the other criteria, you should be fine.
And then is the loss for the full year of between 2019 and 2020, or do you go by
Correct.
specific quarters?
Correct. You'll show your sales and use tax. Will be obviously month to month, however you file, but yeah. It'll be
So
year.
since I took it over in 2019, and if I outperformed most of the year but took a loss in one of the quarters, do I still qualify?
You would not. It would be a total loss.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So two
Jen,
questions.
I have a
We've
question for you.
confirmed that ERTC was not considered a relief item in email before with Max, but I think on this call, we're saying ERTC is considered COVID relief, which is
Yeah, again, that's not being backed out of any of the formulas. We're just asking you guys if you've received it.
And then second question, so owners commonly have a management company operating hotels on their behalf, and the management entity may file the sales and use tax returns under a management entity versus the owner entity, while all the revenues would belong to the owner and filed on their federal tax returns. Does it present any issues or are there any additional requirements to further demonstrate that relationship where the entity names don't match between federal tax returns and sales and use tax returns?
Go ahead, David.
I can comment on that. Patrick, it would be acceptable to provide a copy of the contractual arrangement between the owner and the management company in order to be able to make the connection between the entity on the tax returns and the entity on the sales and use tax return.
Understood. Thank you.
You'll have a multiple upload section too, Patrick, on I think every upload field has a multiple upload section. So wherever you're putting that piece in, you can attach it there.
Jen, this is Kenneth. Okay. I have a clarifying question that I need to be answered. It would appear as if one of the primary gatekeeper is your revenue. So if your revenue, let's say the hotel was under renovation for the first half of 2019, it's very difficult to show a loss versus a full year 2020. Is that going to be prorated 1 year versus the next, or you're looking at full year versus the partial year? Because that would automatically disqualify you if you're looking at, a half a year versus a full year because of something out of your control. You were under renovation, the hotel wasn't open. Is there any consideration for those situations?
So unfortunately, this program could be so nuanced. We just have to have parameters around it, right? Our role is to limit waste, fraud, and abuse. We have to set general parameters over everything. So it will be the loss of 15% shown for 2020 over 2019. And that's the approved program that we have and what we are implementing. So that's what we have to roll with.
David, I have a question.
Hello. There was the SBA like a payment pause for 9 months. Is that comes into play here, or this was just pause, so it does not affect anything?
Again, the only thing backed out of your award calculation is going to be any loans that were subsequently forgiven during that same time.
Or loan forgiven. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to ask you about COVID relief funds you may receive in the later part where we're justifying the impact. But the only time that you're going to have that pulled out of your award is that first part of the application that you saw me go through, where it's anything that's subsequently been forgiven. And if you guys will if we can raise our hands too, because I think everybody's got a lot of questions now. So I'm just going to go down the list. Becky, do you still have a question?
Yes, I have one quick one. So just on the general calc, if I calculate, we've had more than the 15% loss year on year. So if my loss is let's just say 30,000 is over the 15%, I take the 5% of that 30,000 and that's my award amount. Less
you have
than
no other
anything I've been forgiven.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. That's all I needed.
All I see is K. Guess.
Yep, that is me.
Okay.
The questions on federal tax side, basically, what line number on ordinary income comparisons for the loss amount we are looking? Is it the ordinary income tax line 21 or the deductions with the income on the top line, which is 1C or 1A in a gross income on the federal tax return?
I saw David raise his hand.
Yeah, 1A gross.
1A gross. And that's the one supposed to be get compared, and that's the one supposed to be determine the valuations with borrowing or the grant money from the government of the office, correct?
Yes.
Gotcha. In the personal tax also needs to be uploaded personal tax returns as well?
No, need to be.
No. All right.
No.
Great.
The sales and use tax returns will also need to be uploaded as well, because depending on the circumstances, they will likely be used in determining the calculation.
Definitely, yes, because on 2020, when the grant or the PPP comes in, those money is considered as our income, and the CPA also put it down that as an income in our tax returns, and that we can put it together with the P&L. But obvious, the previous questionnaire on one of the lady asked, can we present P&L? And she got on refusal. So I was looking while you guys doing the other things, what you guys determining and how you determining whatnot. And I happened to pull out that questions, and it's kind of, I think, great help if sales tax can be comparisons with 1A on a federal return or 1C, whichever is there.
And look, I mean, once we start getting these into, the nuances are definitely going to pop out, and we may reevaluate and update things, and we'll make sure we keep you up to breast on that. But again, right now, this is what we have, governor approval.
Definitely.
As fast as possible to everyone. This is a program we're really excited about getting this funding out to hoteliers. And so we're just trying to get it out. Again, with the least administrative burden, you guys are beneficiaries. So there is no monitoring on you guys. There's no subrecipient monitoring. You don't have to do audited financials. So that piece of it is cleared. But we have to make sure that we're covering bases and making sure that any forgiven loans are pulled out, and we have some parameters around this program. And so these are the parameters that we have that have been approved. And so again, we're super happy to get this out. I think at this point, we've got a couple more minutes in the meeting, but rather than kind of going back and forth, we'll put an FAQ up to kind of point you back to what's going to be, in the actual application, what that calculation is going to look like. If you have specific questions for and everyone's going to be, I know a lot of you are going to have some that that folks can resonate with. But what we have found is largely you guys all have very nuanced businesses. Some may own a lot, some may own a few, some may have received SBA, some may not have, some may have it forgiven, some may not have. And so I think it's really important that you guys get a meeting with Max. We can go over it. We can hop on an individual call with you all to figure it out, to see if, number one, you're eligible. And if you are, how you go about applying for the program.
Can you put down the FAQ email to everybody, or FAQ link on the screen or on the chat? One or two?
It will be on our website when we post everything, when the application goes live. Yep.
All right. Sounds great.
Yeah, we're trying to get through a lot of the feedback with the hoteliers and kind of see what questions you guys have and make sure we're answering the common questions. And then again, the nuanced ones are probably not going to help because it just depends, and those may confuse folks. But in general, those questions will be answered in our FAQs to help you guys out.
Definitely. Thanks.
Of course. All right. Well, guys, I put his email in the chat as well, so you guys have that. Again, email him all your questions. If it's something that's easy for us to answer in just an email, we'll certainly get back to you really quickly on that. If we need to schedule a call to kind of go through it so you can kind of explain some of it to, again, determine eligibility and see how you should proceed with the application, we'll do that as well and set up a call.
Jen, could I ask a question?
Sure.
I have two questions quickly. David, on the discussion about submitting the management contract, can that be redacted since that's pretty confidential?
Yeah, the intent of that is just to connect the names of the entities if they are disparate between the federal return and the sales and use tax return.
Do you need the whole management contract, or could you have just a cover page and a signature page?
I would prefer redactions to where we're still able to make the connection between all the pages in the document, if that makes sense, rather than just a cover page and a signature page.
Okay. And Jen, is there any possibility of pushing this off 1 week as far as opening up the applications? Because there's a lot of stuff that everybody's got to try to pull together, and it's Friday morning. And if you open it up at 8 o'clock, it's going to be very, very difficult for people to pull this stuff together and get a fully approved application. If we had another week, I think everybody on this line would very much appreciate that and would have a lot more time to be able to pull together the information.
Unfortunately, this is the approval that we have, so it will open on Monday.
Okay.
And we can put, again, someone asked for a list of all the documents required. I will put that on there this afternoon. So that way that'll help, so you know what you're going to need to apply on Monday. And you'll have a copy of, you'll be able to go back through this webinar and see what's in the application too. So you guys should know what you
together between now and Monday morning, when you have owners that have to do narratives and I agree with him. I think.
But what is the deadline for submitting application?
There is no deadline. There's no deadline.
Yeah, so no rush, guys. Come on.
No, it's a first come, first serve.
I agreed. I mean, it's just in Georgia. I mean, if you are really dying for the money, I don't think so. We are in business.
I have a.
If we run out of time, I just find that this is a little short notice.
I have a question related to the guy that just asked a question about different tax ID numbers. We have a tax return, income tax return from a company that is that wholly owns the company that runs the hotel. So the sales and tax returns we submit, we'll explain this in a letter, but the sales and tax returns are going to be in a different tax ID number than the income tax returns for the ownership of the hotel. But I think it's going to be abundantly clear. I just want to warn you guys, there's going to be all those kinds of idiosyncrasies from group to group that we just need to clarify in the application.
Totally understand. We hear you loud and clear on that, and that's why we're having these discussions with you guys. Again, we want to get it out. You know, we know that all of you, there's going to be a lot of idiosyncrasies for sure. And we're willing to work with you guys.
Management company filing for the tax and sales tax and stuff for them, I don't know how you guys going to be determining that also, because it's a two different EIN, two different reporting on the tax accounting number on the Georgia tax centers and everything. You're going to have every single identity different, two different corporations, two different organizations.
But as long as it's the same, hotel property, that's what they're trying to verify.
Correct.
They're going to also look for EIN numbers with one location address. If they have multiple EIN numbers.
We are very much aware that you guys have multiple facilities with the same EIN. We're working with Department of Revenue. We really appreciate your feedback, and we will continue to work with you diligently to make sure that we take into consideration all of the nuances of each individual owners or operators, etc.
All right, thanks.
Can I jump in with one quick question on PPP?
Sure.
You're asking for us to list PPP on the application as a benefit received. And for the folks, like you just mentioned, that have multiple hotels under an EIN, PPP was awarded on EIN basis. So you're going to have an application, maybe 4 applications per hotel for the grant relief. But they're going to have PPP awarded on the EIN level. So how do you guys want us to divide or list the PPP or these benefits that were ordered on EIN level to the hotel level?
So are you not tracking how that PPP is spent across each location?
The spend is easy. It's the grant that's the issue, because and we can certainly do it if you want. If you're saying, hey, just allocate it pro rata, we can do that. We just need to know how you want it done.
Sure. Yeah, we can provide. Sure, that's a really good point. So we can provide some instruction in the application for you. We can go update that after this call, and provide you some instruction.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Speaking on the PPP stuff, if we had 2 PPP loans, like we got the relief in 2020 and then in 2021, if this is only dealing with 2020, is that the amount of the PPP we enter? Is the first one or both?
The first one.
Okay, thank you.
And you can talk, if you want to further discuss, in the narrative portion, again, which is not pulled out of the calculation, if you want to discuss, you have the opportunity to discuss the operational gap, and all that too. So you can, if you want to pull the 2021 in there, you can do that there for the narrative piece, but we're only looking for that 2020. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Again, we'll put this on the website. Typically, it takes us a little bit longer, but I'll make sure that gets on the website today. And then we'll get the list of documents that you'll need. And just please continue to monitor the website for any updates we have. If you need anything else, again, we love your feedback. Reach out to Max. We're happy to take individual calls with you all to work through this and take your feedback in. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.